I'm Gene Grant, here with this week's Line Opinion panelists. A report caught our attention this week. It's called Slicing the Budget Pie for Big Business. It was released by the nonprofit group Good Jobs First. The Santa Fe New Mexican and other outlets also covered the key findings in this report, that national companies are getting a much larger share of tax subsidies and credits than small local companies here in New Mexico. The report found that 70% of tax credits have gone to big out-of-state companies in recent years. So what do you think about that number? Go to NewMexicoFocus.org. Tell us what you think. You can also share your thoughts and reactions with us on Facebook and Twitter. And Eric, you, my friend, have been on this subject for a long time. It's almost as if this report, Good Jobs First, has confirmed everything you've been trying to say for a long time. But 70% is shocking. 70%. What did you make of this when you saw this number?
Well, first of all, I'm on Good Jobs First National Board, just in full disclosure. I didn't have anything to do with the report before it was released, other than making sure people saw it. You know, it confirms what I think a lot of research is showing and what a lot of us have felt for a long time. And by the way, when I was in the Richardson administration's Economic Development Department, this was a concern that we raised, but how hard it is for the main employers, the main job creators, which are the small local businesses. As we know, they create most of the jobs across the country, but certainly New Mexico, 80% plus. How hard it is for them to access any of these incentives. It's just very, very, not just the transactional cost, but just their, you know, a lot of this is political. People want to run up numbers. So if you can offer an incentive to a 200, 300, 400 person call center and give them a couple of $1 million, which the fund that I used to work with, we used to do all the time. It's a much bigger win than saying, "Hey, I created 3 jobs in you know Gel," and but to Gel or to Tucumcari or to the South Valley, 5 or 10 jobs are really, really important. They're sustainable usually. They're local. There's all sorts of arguments and research around how much more small businesses and local businesses buy into, you know, what we call social capital, which is really contributing to policy change and health outcomes and investment in infrastructure in communities, as opposed to, you know, big companies who may or may not. Some of them are very good at taking part and really doing their fair share in terms of making the community better. But a lot of them just don't have the stake that we have in that small businesses have. So it's been a bad policy. Frankly, it's been both parties for a long time.
Glad you said that.
And, you know, and I think that we're seeing a sea change nationally, and Good Jobs First and Greg Leroy and his team have been at the forefront of saying to people, look, the jobs are being created here. This is how we have vibrant, viable communities. And yet, states, you know, in this case, it was not just New Mexico. You know, it was.
That's right. It's a nationwide report.
Yeah,
right.
it's there. Continue to buy into this conventional economic development wisdom that we should target all our incentives to recruit and to continue to subsidize. Frankly, companies that, as the report says, don't really need the help. They'll take it if you offer it to them. They'll absolutely take it. And
or
you know,
perhaps better said, they'll get it if they ask for it.
Yeah.
And it seems Mary Herrera, they're asking and getting.
Mary Torres.
Oh, Torres. I keep saying Mary Herrera. Wow, it's a big difference.
No offense, Mary. But
No, sorry, Mary. That's a goodie. Where was I? Now, the idea that you could take 70% or give subsidies to someone like UPS and not realize our own leverage. They can ask all they want. Why are we giving it away? That's my question. Why are we giving this to people that don't need the money, literally?
Well, but I think we're also trying to encourage businesses to come to New Mexico. I mean, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
I'm going to parry that for a quick sec. Would UPS not do business here if they didn't get the tax break?
Well, Tesla didn't do business here, didn't get the tax break. So, I mean, so I think that we just want to think about that, and we want to be, especially when other states are doing this around. If people are looking at a choice between New Mexico, Arizona, Texas, and everybody else is doing it, I think we ought to.
Let me throw one more back at you across the net. The idea of balance, 70% and small business getting 30% of the goods. Is that comfortable for you?
No, that's not. But again, I think we do have to balance as we are trying to attract business here, and so I think we ought to try.
Sure.
We ought to try it.
And Laura, if you listen to the rhetoric, like Eric mentioned, we talk about small business here endlessly. Endlessly, but the rubber's not meeting the road somehow in this situation.
Right.
Where's the bottleneck as you see
small
it?
business and local business, I think, is really important.
Better point.
Because we see examples of, local small businesses not being favored over out of state. I mean, the biggest one that comes to mind, obviously, is the public one on behavioral health services. We're talking about a lot of small local providers that ended up, getting kicked out in favor of a huge, Arizona Arizona companies, multiple ones. That's a problem. But there's other examples where people go, for legal services, for example, decide to contract with an out-of-state firm instead of going with a local firm. Mary's a sole practitioner, has a small business. Obviously, that's going to make a difference. But I think, there's a lot of factors, I think, that go into this issue of the 70 versus 30. A lot of those small businesses don't have the capacity to have people looking out for some of these tax incentives for them. They don't have the budget to pay a professional to help them with some of that.
But isn't that what organizations are for, and umbrella organizations?
Well, some do, and
yeah.
one of the ones that I worked for, the New Mexico Green Chamber of Commerce, we did some of that. We had 1,100 members at the time, and most of them were small business, 1 and 2 person shops, and so that kind of assistance at a centralized level was really huge for them. But there's other issues that come along, and some of the chambers, not necessarily the Green Chamber, but other traditional chambers, sometimes end up focusing or being completely usurped by those huge companies.
That's right.
And so the smaller guys don't get much of that, any crumbs that are even left on the table. And so that's a big problem organizationally. But I think that accounts for some of it. But I think there's also a lot to be said for some of the programs that we have in the state that do attract out-of-state companies, and one that I'm familiar with is the Renewable Energy Production Tax Credit, for example. Big companies take advantage of it, but when they're looking at where to site some of their renewable projects, and they're looking at New Mexico versus Arizona versus Texas, the fact that we have the ability to provide a tax incentive that can be competitive for them makes a huge difference. And so that's one of those that I think is working well and changing some of the rural economic development that we really need.
I don't think anyone would expect, to Mary's point, Intel gets this money, Tom, ConocoPhillips, there's a whole list of huge international firms, not just national firms. Fidelity Investments. I just, where does the little guy come in here? I don't understand what the bottleneck is here. Is it the fact that the ACI, the chambers, just mentioned by Laura, are not lobbying heavily enough for the little guy? I mean, something's not quite clicking here.
Well, it's not necessarily the lobbying, because I think lobbying addresses issues that addresses policy change.
Okay.
And so what I think is that you have to have a balanced economic development approach. And I'm a small business owner. I firmly believe, as I've talked about here, that small businesses need more incentives, and not with all the strings attached. But one part is supporting small business and making sure that those businesses and business owners can get the assistance that they need. The other part is that attracting the out-of-state companies to come in and build and stay here. Intel is a great example of that. Fidelity, the Sandia National Laboratories also gets tax break. As far as from the state.
That's right.
There are companies operating in Albuquerque that have industrial revenue bonds, and they're still here.
That's right.
And so there's a lot of different incentives and mechanisms to use in order to attract business. And so I think what I'm hearing around the table is that there has to be a balance. There's some perception. I'm not immediately familiar with the 70% or any of those numbers, but it really just comes down to making sure that there's a balance. And I think I'm hearing here that there isn't really a balance.
Well, one of the points the reports makes is specifically, which I think we have to look at, especially in times of budget sort of austerity and crises like we have. These are we've done a better job of trying to quantify these tax exemptions and what the actual bottom line, how it affects the budget. But when we're talking about cutting millions of dollars for basic services, for healthcare, for education, for early childhood out of the budget, people don't often make the connection that when we give $400 million in essentially tax revenues away, which is what we're talking about here. We're talking about giving tax revenues away. And then the next session we cut, which happened this session and the previous session, we then cut. We can't afford behavioral health funding this last session. They just closed a clinic, the state just closed a clinic on the west side at the Elsman Community Center because we can't afford it. And then the very same folks will support additional incentives that are really, and you'll look at some of the companies getting this, Eclipse, when I was first in city council, it was sort of heresy to not support the incentive.
Right.
And we all know the story. What happened to Eclipse?
Right. You're on the wrong side of it if you were
Shot
opposed.
Solar, a great promising company, but they got a ton of incentives, and so they're not all success stories. But you know what? A small local business that we can help, and there are other ways besides just handing folks tax credits. If we really invest in sort of the human capital parts of it, that's why it all comes back to what are we doing for folks in job training and early childhood and healthcare and all the things that are going to make a workforce so that we don't have to give incentives to Tesla. They're going to come here because we have a great workforce.
That's right.
Well, I think along those same lines, there's a variety of different kinds of tax incentives and public incentives out there. And some of them are, you talked about sort of revenues. I mean, there are the type that are job creation, you get a grant of sorts, and there's, different kinds of strings attached to that money and things you have to meet. And then there's also other ones where you're getting essentially deferred from certain types, like an IRB is an abatement of certain property tax, and in some cases gross receipts taxes. So if you're creating jobs, if you're able to create waves of economic development, then in some ways you're not necessarily losing out on that revenue if you're able to create jobs. And so there's a lot of ways you can slice it. But for example, we talked about Shaw and Eclipse. There's the Santa Elena development, which is also now looking at, and I had to bring that up.
That's fine. I said the light's on, so we're not going to have much time.
Bringing up now they're looking for a PID, a public infrastructure district, development district, and a TID, tax increment development district. So both of those are mechanisms that could work for something like this, but I think there's a lot of controversy with it. It's a very huge development, and then there's an election that's looming that could change the makeup of the county commission, which could end up really impacting their ability to get some of these infrastructure.
Okay, so here's my response.
30 seconds.
Full disclosure,
Okay.
Santa Elena Wall is a client of ours. Right now, the collective value of the what used to be Westland Development Corporation has $10,000 of benefit to Bernalillo County. Okay, that's it, $10,000. What Western Albuquerque Land Holdings is wanting to do is to improve the value of that for the county as well as for their investors and for the community. They have an approach to do that. As a part of that, it includes PIDs and TIDs, public information investment districts, as well as tax increment districts. If for some reason Santa Elena fails, taxpayers are not out a single dollar. Because it only taxes industries and businesses that are there. It does not impact you or me because nobody's living in Santa Elena in that area right now. And that's all.
I'm going to give Eric the last word on that one in 20 seconds. If you can.
Good jobs first, and others have done good work around this. TIDs were actually made, designed, and our legislation was to invest in infill in the inner city. In fact, the first TID was supposed to be for East Downtown. A certain Democratic lobbyist figured out a way to get that redirected for Mesa del Sol. Full disclosure, I helped support Mesa del Sol. The point of TIDs is I know. The point of TIDs, and there was some good stuff out there too. I mean, we were all very hopeful that it would work, but the point is, the last thing I'll say is, for us to be incentivizing in any way development where people don't live, when we have so many needs and right here in the community, and I'm talking all across the city, not just in the downtown area, I think is bad policy, and it's just foolhardy. We've made that mistake over and over again. And I think this is going to be the issue in the county commission race, and then in next year's mayor's race. This issue is going to be the central issue. If you were for this, good luck getting elected as mayor.
Interesting last word there. Thank you all for joining us. Mary, great job.
Thank you.
You got it.
Thanks.
Nice last word.
I'm Gene Grant. Thanks for joining us this week for New Mexico in Focus. We enjoy hearing from you, our viewers, and you can get in touch with us at newmexicoinfocus.org, or you can also share your thoughts with us on Facebook and Twitter. As always, we appreciate your time and effort to stay informed and engaged, and we'll see you next week in Focus. Get a preview of what's coming up on the next New Mexico in Focus. It's easy. Sign up for our weekly email at newmexicoinfocus.org.
Funding for New Mexico in Focus provided by the McCune Charitable Foundation and the Nalita E. Walker Fund for KNME-TV, the KNME-TV Endowment Fund, and viewers like you.